Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm John Hamalian, part of the Lean Global Network, and I'm based in Singapore, where our speaker is also at. Michael Tan and I, we've been friends and colleagues for a very long time. So very happy to have Michael join us today to share his experience. We're both in Singapore. We're both part of something called the Excellence Community. So we have a passionate community of lean practitioners and other methods practitioners, all trying to do things better every day, a little bit better. So Michael is going to be talking to us about a lot of this really has to do with change management. And a lot of times we think we need to be changing the culture, but at the same time, to get lean going in an organization, we also need to adopt to some of the existing cultures as well and adapt to that. So that's basically what Michael's going to walk us through. Michael, very good to introduce you and a warm welcome and looking
Thank
forward
you.
to the presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for the introduction. Uh, so for probably good if I can start by maybe sharing a little bit of what my company does, because that helps set the context and the background for subsequent slides. Uh, so I'm working at this company called NTUC Learning Hub, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer. We are the largest training provider in Singapore for working adults, and primarily we focus on upskilling and reskilling. So on the average per year, we do have about close to 100,000 learners that signs up with us. In terms of giving you some context, that's about 2.5 times more than the largest university in Singapore. So on the average, we run about 100 classes per day, and we do offer about close to about 1,000 courses. And the courses that we offer range from transferable skills like AI and digital transformation to specialized training in certain sectors. In Singapore, we operate about six facilities across east to west, um, probably about 150,000 square feet. So, so that's to run training. Now, behind the scenes, there are a lot of activities that go on to prep for class and to wrap things up. So, supported by the various support functions and the R&D team, we do have about five core processes along the value chain. Just very quickly, we start off first with the planning and the scheduling of classes ahead of time. So we do that for about a year. And we do that so that the sales can start selling into the class. Now, once we sell the class ahead of time, we prepare the course materials and the lab kits for every learner. So that's part two. And then just, the day before the class starts, we reorganize the room layout. That's part three. Class is delivered, part four. And then we record the results for each learner and we submit for certification. So that's part five. All right. So that's kind of the process. Now, our lean story did not begin like I wake up one day and say, hey, let's do lean. No, um, it started off because we had a challenge that we needed to fix, and that was primarily based on that. As our revenue were growing, the profit line wasn't keeping pace. So the operational inefficiencies were eating into the margins. Now, if we drive into the largest expenses, that would be in operations, and within the operations itself, largely driven by manpower and the facility leases. Now, if we go back again to look at the value chain, operations is very involved. All the blue color boxes are where they are touching almost all the core processes except only the selling phase, making them very central to our improvement efforts. However, as most of the us lean practitioners we know, introducing lean is not a simple plug and play. Um, Specific for our organization, half of our operation workforce is 40 years and above. And what does that mean to us is that they are quite used to their routines. At that age, they are also pretty much quite afraid of making mistakes, especially in front of the younger folks. Now, technology also makes them a little bit nervous, sometimes anxious, with tech moving so fast. And at that stage of their age, they prefer, things that are safe, things that are stable, where they can avoid making decisions. They would, less decisions means less mistakes, more decisions means more risk. On to top that off, apart from the age problem we also have our operations been around for a very long time. Some even when the company first started. So we had this inkling that many would be very much attached to the old ways, right? And then in their minds, they'll go like, all right, leaders come and go, but hey, I'm going to be still around, right? Another interesting fact that we found out, I'm also not very long with the company, 3 years thereabouts, but we found out that at one point in time, Lean was actually introduced into this organization. And that could potentially mean that if there were any unpleasant experiences with Lean back then, that would continue to linger on, right? Uh, and also most of the workers in the organization that has been here for a very long time, we reckon that a lot of them are already conditioned to go with the flow, you know, not to change anything, not to rock the boat, not to, upset anyone, their colleagues and all. So it's very important to align what the lean methods that we want to introduce or we hope to introduce with the organization, the culture itself, the current pace, the rhythm it goes, uh, so that, whatever that we want to introduce doesn't fall apart. And so with all this all these concerns that we kind of predict, we also outline some countermeasures or considerations for each concern. Now, by and large, these countermeasures are quite consistent with most of lean implementation, with only the exception of two, and I've highlighted it on the left side with the two butterflies. These are very specific to our environment. The first one is we are not going to go for company-wide improvements. We are looking at more localized improvement. And that is really because we are concerned and to address learned helplessness. Also because of the possibility of negative impression or unpleasant experiences in the past. The second thing that we wanted to do was to avoid using a lot of the lean lingos, lean languages. Try to keep things simple, try to keep things layman as much as possible. Now, with that in mind, we then classify our workforce into three layers. Head of departments is the top layer, middle managers, and then the workers themselves. Now, from the past experiences, middle managers usually they make or break any transformation. So they are very important to us. They are sandwiched between the heads of departments who simply direct and pass things down, and the workers who are really trying to cope with the day to day. So the first thing we did when we started off this journey was to tackle the managers first. And we invited a lot of the managers to the workshop to kind of map the process out, and we invited them to give their inputs. We wanted them to feel that they are going to be very involved. Important thing that we wanted them to understand and feel is they're going to be heard. So we asked them into workshops, we mapped the process, we asked them what could we do to simplify, what could we do to standardize. And we focus a lot on bottlenecks and pain points. reducing steps or combining steps. Now, if you notice the way that I use the language, and I also highlighted underlining the language on the slide, we deliberately avoided using lean terms like reducing waste or increasing value, non-value added activities. We try as much as we can to use simple English, simple language. And so through this exercise, they were very participative. We tried as much as possible to not get them defensive. We invited them not only once. We did a few rounds of workshops. I think we came to a landing. The managers came to a landing in a realization that 75% of the processes can actually be standardized, and that's a great finding, right? So after we worked with the managers, the next group that we tackled were the workers, right? The people on the ground. Uh, and because the workforce is pretty huge, we started first with the next in line seniors. We call them the number twos, right? And these are mostly the experienced staff, right? The experienced employees, and the younger workers look up to them. So for this group of people, we started off by teaching them how to automate processes on their own. Now, we taught them a lot of self-help tools like the Microsoft platforms, how they can automate things themselves, and how to track their own performances. And then we encourage them to do small improvements within their own teams, right? Solve smaller problems that is within their own means, right? Not to get out of their scope. So then we hope that by doing this, we can get them out of this habit of learned helplessness. Like, what can I do? There's nothing I can do. No. We're trying to give you back your mojo. We're trying to give you back the power to make your own lives better and that of your own teams. So that was one of the things that we did to really encourage them, to train them, to tell them, hey, you can do a lot of stuff and you can make your life better. To supplement and to augment this, we also made changes to the management system. We made it the point that as long as it's an improvement, regardless big or small, we want to recognize them. So the first thing we did was we updated the job descriptions that, hey, improvements are important. We also put it into the year-end performance appraisals where if you do improvements, you get additional, kind of points or bonuses so that it's reflected in terms of your contributions. And beyond the extrinsic side, we also focus on the intrinsic motivation, right? Recognitions to really exemplify the behavior that we are looking for. And that not only within the organization, the company itself, but also inviting external guests so that the employees can showcase what they've done, feeling proud, getting that pride going on, and so that we can continue to see that being sustained. Okay, so here we have the workers. Earlier we had the middle managers. So the next group of people that we're going to aim for and target was the head of departments. The head of departments also have KPIs, but not so much of the lean stuff like, dollars and cents and impact, but more on change management. We introduced sort of like a balanced scorecard that we want to measure and not just simply the impact, but also other parameters, such as, is the ideas coming from the workers or the managers or themselves, right? And so if it's coming from the workers, we give, I would say, more points so that they are more recognized. Does it also help in other areas like sustainability, carbon footprint, right? Not just simply the dollars and cents. The other thing that we did was, looking also at improvements that were delayed or canceled. Why were they delayed? Why were they canceled? And that would be a negative on them, because we want to ensure that the head of departments are supporting the managers and the workers who are looking to improve. The moment that support is not felt, then everything falls apart at the worker level. Now, to mitigate the risk of things like delays and cancellations, we also coach the heads of departments about diversifying initiatives, right? So you see on the right side, we have 4 buckets. They all have their pros and cons, and we do encourage the heads of departments not to every single idea just jump to technology because technology takes time. Now, you can also do simple stuff like look at processes. Can we simplify? Can we not do 2 repeated steps, right? This would then have a lot of quick wins, and that generates excitement, that generates momentum, instead of putting all their eggs in one basket. So, with all this in play, 2 years after we kind of started our lean journey, last year just to give you a bit of a sense, 83 improvement initiatives, of which almost close to 3/4 of them coming from the workers themselves, ground up. There are some from the managers, but again, the whole emphasis on the workers, right? They know the process, they do the day-to-day, they know what they do along the value stream, they know the problems, they know the pain points. There's also a sharp increase in the adoption of technology. So the initial fear that, hey, the older workers can't cope, they fear technology. I'm glad to see that a lot of them start to embrace it, start to adopt it. Uh, and a lot of all these initiatives ground up. Now we see a 4% reduction in terms of cost, in terms of expenses on an annual basis. Productivity went up by 11%. Our carbon footprint went down by almost 10 tons per annum last year. And so, that's one way to give back not only to society, but, freeing up their time for their own families. So that's kind of a sense of what has been accomplished, 2 years into this whole program. And to kind of end the session, I'd like to give share 2 success stories with everyone. The first one uh, relates to the area of the class scheduling, right? So the folks there, we call them the schedulers. They will do forecasting. They will see what's the demand like, and then they will kind of schedule the classes so that the sales can sell. And for most of us, we know forecast is never accurate. Forecast is the best effort that we can do. So then, what happens when the demand picks up? How can we respond to market increases faster so that we minimize disruption for sales to continue selling, right? So what they did was we added in this purple arrow, you see there, a feedback loop from sales, right? Uh, and they came up with a solution. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the solution here because it's too complicated. But one thing I wanted to share is that all the ideas you see here, the 4 things at the bottom of the slide, all came from the workers themselves, the schedulers, right? And they use a variety of tools like Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI. Now, as we started going into the solution, uh, one of the things that we also observe, not only the schedulers, but the workers in general, because they've been here for so long, they're not very good at escalating problems, right? Because they fear upsetting other colleagues in the company, right? Because they've been together for so long. They're kind of like part and parcel of everyone. I don't want to cause any trouble for you. So they keep the problem to themselves. They don't really escalate, right? So one of the solution they brought up, they came up with, or one of the ladies here, right, uh, was coming up with a system. She coded a simple thing to monitor and escalate when there are delays in opening classes. So what is interesting is, hey, now the staff doesn't need to escalate. The computer escalates for them. So if they get into trouble with their colleagues, they could say, "Oh, no, it's not me. The computer did that," right? So that helped with flagging out issues and bottlenecks. Now, as the matter is being resolved, that is being taken out of the queue so that the schedule can continue working on the next class to open. So there is no stopping. The line continues to run. There is no bottleneck, right? It speeds up turnaround time for sales to catch the demand. So what is interesting to highlight here is that actually this whole thing is a simple idea to try to reduce bottlenecks. And the workers were trying to really speed things up, trying to figure out where should you not pass. And without realizing it, their solution is actually an end-on system. The only difference is that the cord is not being pulled by them by the workers, but it's being pulled by a computer. So without teaching them lean things, lean stuff, they've implemented a lean concept, and that's great, right? So that's kind of the focus of this particular improvement here. Uh, and let me go to the second success story to share. Now, the next success story is a little bit more interesting. Now, the idea did not come up from the ground, from the workers. It came from the manager herself, the manager of the post-class admin. Now, her pain point was trying to deal with demand fluctuations with manpower constraints. Now, she observed that for different courses, some would go up while some would come down. And when courses, the workload decreased, she wasn't able to redeploy to help with the workload for a different course type. Now, you might be wondering why. Well, that's because her team was structured by each worker being responsible for a set of courses. So it's on what I'm showing on the left side of the slide. Now, if you remember that I mentioned we have about 1,000 courses. Worst case scenario, one course type has one work instruction. That would mean if I wanted to cross-train everyone to be able to redeploy, everyone would have to memorize 1,000 SOPs, right? And that's not possible. It's not feasible. It's not realistic. So we can't cross-train, and therefore we can't cross-deploy. Now, this manager had attended the manager's workshop. So she knew that, hey, 75% of all these SOPs are quite similar. So what she did was she simplified and she standardized most of it. And she was able to narrow down to 3 major procedural steps, which is what you see on the right. So it's 3 stations, so to speak. Sort of like a McDonald's thing, right? And so now, instead of trying to memorize 1,000 SOPs for every step, they just have to memorize 3 SOPs, which is a lot more feasible and easier. And once you started cross-training all of them with the different daily demand, she could easily redeploy her team to different stations to balance out the workload. Very same with the success story 1, right? Without realizing it, she was actually practicing Hyunka, workload leveling. However, unlike case study 1, the success story, the hard part for this particular solution wasn't the solution itself. It was really winning the hearts and the minds of the people. This change was a massive reorg for the team. It was a totally new way of working. And with many of the folks in her team way past 40 years old, some extremely long tenures, without the support of her team, this whole change would fail. So she spent considerable amount of time communicating with her team, explaining the why. She would go and do small pilots, right? She would engage early to say, hey, let's try something out. Let's do it small. Let's do pilot, right? Then we can fine tune and improve on it. She made sure also that she was always there to support her team, training them, coaching them, guiding them whenever they had obstacles or when they faced certain challenges. And then she wanted really to show quick, small success, right? So that she can celebrate wins, show impact, influence the others who are still standing by the fence. And so going through this whole process here that I've kind of laid out, she then repeats it as she expands the pilot over and over again. And she did this in a, probably in the duration of 1 whole year. It wasn't something that she did in 2 months and all right, we've retransformed and we're ready to go. No, she took almost 1 whole year to transform this entire team to operate really, really different. And after that 1 year of transformation in 2024, not only was her team able to handle 25% more workload with current manpower, she was able to quickly redeploy the team so that the team can help one another during different peaks and troughs. And on the right is the photograph that I just took last week. The team celebrating another small win. I'm not sure what improvement that is, but I'm happy if they're celebrating because it means it's another great win for the team. And with that, I end my presentation and I'll pass it back to John to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Michael. Yes, let's open it up. I'm going to monitor that so far we don't have any questions that I could see. Like Michael has there, feel free to link in with him as well if you do have any questions or want to contact him. For me, it was a great example of doing lean or a lean transformation the lean way. Too many times we see people trying to do a transformation that's kind of a push system, right? We say, oh, well, there's resistors, so we just need to like push past them. But actually what Michael's saying is we need to understand, go to the Gemba, just like we're supposed to do, listen, understand, and then actually adapt our approach to what's actually happening on the ground. And in that sense, get things done. And at the same time, incorporate it into the DNA of the organization. How many times have we seen where we're trying to get people to do Kaizen and we wonder why they don't do it because it's not actually embedded in their JD, right? In their job description, in their performance appraisal, and they're not being measured on it. We wonder why managers are not responding, but Michael's put it into their KPIs and not just made it a results-based KPI, but actually a performance-based one based on change management. So what a great example of lean leadership. Michael was actually going to be on the executive stage. You can see he's a COO. So we have the privilege of having him here because we just had a scheduling conflict. But thanks so much for sharing, Michael.
No worries.
I'm still looking at the chat box, unless I've got the wrong window up. So far, I don't see any questions. And Michael, with maybe another minute we have left, what do you think for your? There, I do see one from one of my old colleagues from Dell. Hello, Paul. Good to have you on. Paul's asking, what is the greatest challenge you've experienced with pushing the rope of executive buy-in? How were you able to get you're already a part of the senior leadership team in your organization, Michael, but how were you able to get buy-in from people even more senior than you?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And I remember it very fondly. Many years back, I had the privilege of uh, meeting up, catching up with Jim Womack, right? And I asked him the same thing. And I remember he gave me one very good piece of advice, right? He said, start with a problem and try to solve the problem. Instead of trying to push lean into the organization, why not look at how do we solve uh, a business problem that can show that, with applying all the lean methods and the techniques and all that stuff, that we can really, really improve the organization, improve our businesses. So one of the mistakes I used to do in the past, and then I'm going to be very upfront of it, was when I joined the organization, I pushed lean in, and then I pushed lean in again, and I pushed lean again, and nothing worked out. You're right. Some people buy in, some people don't. But it's different when we have a problem statement, and then we try to work around it. A burning platform. And the important thing I learned from this particular experience compared to my previous one was I avoided using lean jargons. I focus on simple language, simple English, simple stuff so that people can understand. Because the moment we lose them in terms of all the linguals and languages, yeah, they're going to take a back seat. So that would be my 2 cents take on the answer.
Very good. Well, hopefully that helped, Paul. Thanks for the question. We're at the end of the half hour, so we are supposed to end the webinar now, at least this session. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the Lean Global Connection, wherever you are in the world, and hope to see you for the rest of the conference and also next year as well. Thanks again, Michael.
No worries. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.